Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey now, what's happening, everyone? Welcome here on a wonderful Monday. 0 degrees outside. Michael Remis here in the host chair, filling in for Hustler. He's on his way to Costa Rica. Hopefully he can join us occasionally throughout the week. You know he's going to be tooting his own horn, or at least the horn of the Kansas City Chiefs. And, weighing in on the Jets as well, of course. But what a weekend. Some nice weather. Got out on the outdoor rink finally yesterday. Nice to see so many people outside. But more importantly, the weekend bookmarked by 5-2 wins, 2 of them by the Winnipeg Jets. Friday against Utah HC, and yesterday against the Calgary Flames. Both games, revenge wins. Calgary a week ago on Saturday, and earlier the week in Utah. And it was Monday's loss against Utah. Coach Scott Arniel called the team's play embarrassing. And fueling the conversations here last week, we thought, okay, he's played the card where you call out the team. How are they going to respond? Well, they've responded with a 3-game win streak. We're going to talk more about that throughout the show. Some Winnipeg Blue Bombers news over the weekend. It was Paul Friesen who reported the team will not be bringing back longtime veteran linebacker Adam Bighill. And this morning, news broke that they have released receiver Drew Wolitarsky. The Super Bowl, it's set. I'm sure everyone is dying to see this rematch. The KC Chiefs in there again, going for the three-peat against the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, it was the Kelsey Bowl 2 years ago, but this time Jason is members of the media. And I don't think we saw Zach Claris in Travis's box yesterday like we did last year when the game was in Buffalo. And we did have a big trade, huge trade, enormous trade on Friday. Colorado Avalanche trading pending UFA Mikko Rantanen to Carolina, to help Chicago help facilitate that, retaining some salary, and they got back Marty Necas and some draft picks. Carolina was able to get Mikko Rantanen and Taylor Hall. We've got a great lineup of guests coming up. WC contributor, host of Sunday Live and Jets Weekly. That came out this morning, Connor Hrabchak. Please make sure you're subscribed to this channel and click on that notification bell to get alerted for any new content that we have. Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press will get some great insight on the Blue Bombers and CFL free agency coming up next month. We're like 2 weeks away. Mike McIntyre was at the lightly attended Jets skate this morning. We'll touch on the Jets weekend. And Evan Rawal of the Denver Gazette. He covers the Avalanche. He was with them on the road this weekend. It was in the dressing room, got full reaction. So I'm really excited to talk to him about GM Chris McFarland's plan and what was going on with them this weekend, where they did get a comeback win over the Rangers, but lost immediately after the trade to the Bruins. And hey, before we get more into the show, just got to give a shout out to the sponsors. Without them, I would not be here talking to you right now. So shout out to Rolly's Transfer, Manitoba Battery, Princess Auto, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Fans First, A Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and the Winnipeg Jets. And yes, make sure to join us for the next WST night at the Jets game, Friday, February 7, when the Jets take on the Islanders. That's winnipegjets.com/WST. So let's start with Friday from the weekend. The Winnipeg Jets got their revenge. And on Friday's show, we had talked so much about Cole Perfetti, how he moved from the second line to the third line, back to the second line, how he was on a 14-game scoring slump, but he was doing all the right things and rewarded if he continued the process. And what a game it was for him on Friday. First career hat trick, a beautiful pass from Ehlers to an even better one-timer. He went to the front of the net and tapped in a rebound, and then Ehlers passed to him for the empty net hat trick. And I thought to myself, as the hats rained down, what an amazing tradition the hat trick is. I don't think there's anything like that in sports where fans throw their hats on the ice. What a scene that was. And on the morning where Cole Perfetti said he wanted to, quote, be a prick to play against, he followed it up with not one, not two, but not three goals in the team's win. And how about Nikolai Ehlers on Friday morning? Didn't attend practice, but followed it up with a 3-point night, including his 500th career point, moving up the all-time ranks, Jets Thrashers franchise history, or the local history of an NHL team that's played in Winnipeg. But Nikolai Ehlers, when asked about his morning he said, "You don't want to know." As this flu bug goes through the team, it was Josh Morrissey's turn to be game time decision yesterday, but he suited up. But again, congratulations, Nikolai Ehlers, 500 points. I mean, shows you how long he's played for the Winnipeg Jets and what a great player he's been. But the questions do continue about his free agency status going into the offseason. And then yesterday, the Jets were on a mission. Get Eric Comrie his first win since November. After 8 straight losses with limited goal support, 12 total goals for in 8 games. That's not what you want to see from one of the top scoring teams in the league. The Jets finally able to give exactly that to Comrie. Nice offensive outburst against the Flames. Wasn't Dustin Wolf stymieing them yesterday like he did the previous week. It was Dan Vladar. They beat him 5 times, getting Eric Comrie the win. Comrie didn't have to be spectacular, stopping 20 of 22, but he was solid when called upon. Big saves against Sharangovich, Uyghur, Kuzmenko. And hey, for the first 6 losses of that 8-game losing streak, Comrie, he had allowed 3 or more goals. But in the last 3 games, he's allowed 2 goals in each, including that game against LA where only one of those was in regulation. It was pretty clear he's been solid, but wasn't getting any goal support. He believed in his process, and nice to see the Jets follow it up and give him some support, especially with that power play 5, especially the power play 2 for 2 yesterday, and them scoring 5 total goals. And speaking of the power play, as we wind this down, it's been amazing to see the power play coached by Davis Payne go from a bottom third power play to the league's best in the NHL, 33.3%. It's basically the same players as last year, but Gabe Vilardi, he's healthy, and Nikolai Ehlers, he's been given a prominent role on the power play 1 for the first time in his career as a Jet. They may not have had a ton of opportunities as of late. We're going to get into that with Mike, but they've shown they're dangerous. Last year, Jennings watch heading into the end, but this year, what is it? First in the Central Division banner watch, President's Trophy banner watch, Hart Trophy nominee watch, Vezina watch. Again, it's been an incredible start here. I guess we're more than a start. We're like more than halfway through for the Jets as we march toward the trade deadline and the playoffs and the 4 nations in the second half of the season. They did practice today, limited skate. They're off to Montreal, but I'll shut up now. Let's bring in, he's been patiently waiting, Connor Hrabchak. Connor, what's going on? Busy day yesterday for you. WST Sunday Live in the morning, and then Jets Weekly. I guess it came out this morning, but you did that last night. What's going on, Connor? How are you?
I'm doing well. Great weekend, like you said, of weather. Was able to get out on the ODR myself, and it was awesome. 2 Jets wins as well, like you said, to start the weekend and to end the weekend against Utah and Calgary. And this weekend was full of storylines. You had the Cole Perfetti hat trick, and he led the team in hits that night, coming off of that prick comment. He had 3 hits in that game, and then the power play once again. You just can't take a penalty against this Jets team right now. And coming out of those comments on Monday night, the Jets have won 3 straight games without their captain Adam Lowry, and that's I think as good of a response as you could have asked for after that embarrassing loss on Monday.
Yeah, we were talking about how are they going to respond, and they have, as you said, 3-game win streak. What was the biggest standout for you from the 2 games at home this weekend?
I think the Perfetti and Ehlers duo on Friday night kind of dominated the storylines. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers had the flu game. Like you said there, you didn't want to know how he woke up that morning and went on to have 3 points, 500 points in his career. And then Cole Perfetti with his first career hat trick, and they were kind of fighting, or not fighting. Cole Perfetti said he wasn't going to fight for it, but who gets that puck? Cole Perfetti's first career hat trick, Nikolai Ehlers' 500th point. It ended up being Nikolai Ehlers, who said he was going to take it because he's older. And then yesterday, I mean, the power play just kind of dominated. I thought it was an even game for the most part, but you can't take a penalty penalty against this team right now because they are just going to score. And it looks so simple when they're scoring because Gabe Vilardi does the drop step move in front and defenders have yet to catch on to that. And then Mark Scheifele off the rush is able to just shoot it 5-hole, and this team is attacking and shooting a ton. And there's so much movement, so many options, and it looks so sustainable what the Jets power play is doing right now, even when they're not getting all the opportunities and all the chances that maybe they were getting earlier in the year. Like you said, they're converting on them. And I tweeted this late last night because I went down a bit of a rabbit hole just to see how good the Winnipeg Jets power play has been. But at 33.3%, I know that we're, 30-something games until the end of the season. There's a long way to go. But that would be the greatest power play in NHL history. The Edmonton Oilers set the record in 2022-23 at 32.4%, and they were the highest mark since the late 70s, which is when the league started tracking power play percentage. So in the late 70s, I think it was the Montreal Canadiens had a 31% power play. The Oilers set the record at 32% and were the highest since then. And now the Winnipeg Jets, you were talking about Jennings watch, President's Trophy watch. Maybe we're on the best power play of all time watch, which, like you said, is ridiculous to even think about because last year they were 22nd, 18.8%, mostly the same players. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers got moved up to that top unit, which I know Jets fans have been clamoring for years now. And who would have thought it actually worked? And Davis Payne deserves a ton of credit for running this power play and playing and maximizing all of the players' strengths on it and being so diverse and being able to beat penalty kills in multiple ways. But the power play, being the best power play of all time through the first 51 games, was not on my bingo card coming into the season.
Yeah, I don't think there's a trophy for that one, but being in the record books, I mean, they don't have, a Connor McDavid or a Leon Draisaitl, but the sum of all their parts on that power play has been better than what they're able to produce. Incredible. And you look at, and we're talking about a number of watches. I forgot Jack Adams' watch for Scott Arniel. Could he get recognized at the end of the season? Or how about the Rocket Richard, Mark Scheifele, 28 goals, tied for third in the league. Leon Draisaitl, he's ahead in first at 35. Kyle Connor, 27, tied for fifth with Braden Point. So, Scheifele, Connor, they're doing it, and it was nice to see on Friday's game. Connor was in a bit of a scoring slump himself, going pointless for a couple, but that second line, Perfetti, Ehlers step up with 3 goals, and David Gustafsson, who's had some contributions since coming back as well, scoring on Friday, and yesterday it was Mason Appleton, who's coming back, started on the fourth line, but really has settled into that third line there with Nino Niederreiter. One thing, Eric Comrie, that was a big thing for me yesterday. I mean, the Jets had played so well against Calgary a week ago, but Dustin Wolf, made save after save. They outchanced them. I don't think it was that type of dominant performance. And shout out to the schedule gods. We do complain about the schedule all the time when the Jets are on the road, but we do have to acknowledge at home. I mean, the Jets, we don't call it. Sorry, I was talking to Hustler. He's like, if you're going to acknowledge the scheduled losses, you got to acknowledge scheduled wins as well. Exactly. But the Jets were able to take care of business playing Utah on Friday, who were in Minnesota the night before, and Calgary yesterday, who they were in Minnesota on Saturday. But the Jets, they played well enough to win. They were able to score the goals, and it was nice to see Eric Comrie finally get his first win after going 8 without.
Yeah, 8 games without a win and only 12 goals for the Jets in that game. You talk about how good the power play's been and how the Jets are one of the top scoring teams in the NHL and one of the best teams in the NHL. But it just didn't happen when Comrie was in net for whatever reason. The power play would go cold and things of that nature. So it was really nice to see Eric Comrie get the win, like you said. You could tell that after the game, he said it was a relief, and you could tell that it was relieving for him, and it was weighing on him quite a bit. It was getting to a point there where he was going to have to get a shutout to win. And I know after the game, he said that thought did creep in, but you never want to think as a goalie that you need to be perfect and you need to stop every single shot, which is definitely the mindset to have. But yeah, I mean, it was getting to a point where the Jets were going to have to give him some run support, and they did, scoring 5 goals. And yeah, maybe these games over the weekend were definitely scheduled wins because of both teams playing the night before in Minnesota and getting the backup goaltender for the Calgary Flames, which I thought the Jets played better against the Flames the first time that these two teams met. They got the result in this one. They didn't in the other one. that just goes to show how important goaltending is, because Dustin Wolf definitely stole that one earlier in the season, and the Jets' power play just kind of willed them to victory on Sunday night for Comrie.
Yeah, and just looking at the standings now, Connor, the Winnipeg Jets are first in the Central, first in the West, and if the season ended today, they would be playing the Calgary Flames. And how much more juicy or how much better of a first-round matchup would it be for the Jets if you played Calgary, I mean, rather than going against Dallas or Minnesota or Colorado now, who is in the first wild card. So I think it shows you how important. We were on Central Division banner watch in 2019, didn't go so well in the second half. And even the last 2 years, the Jets have contended until late in the season. But they have a real lead right now in the Central. They have a lead over Vegas, and it's definitely theirs to grab. I mean, plus 56 goal differential, Connor, far and away the best in the West. Washington, who we're going to see this week, they're second with plus 53, but no one else is close. So the Jets are getting the goaltending, they're getting the scoring, and yesterday they finally got a win for Eric Comrie. And we talked about how much the team won. He did get the jacket. Here's Scott O'Neill after the game talking about, hey, getting Eric Comrie that first win since November.
Yeah, that was good to see. Obviously, we talked about it a few times here. Us not scoring goals, but to get up like we did was real good. And then he still got tested. There were some looks that he had come up big, but the boys were pretty excited for him after the game.
Yeah, they're excited for him. And let's hear from the man himself, Eric Comrie, talking about if win number 4 of the season felt different than win number 3, which came back in November against the Blue Jackets.
Probably a little different than the first 3. A little more relieving, I'd say. But you know what, though? It's like, I know it hasn't been a while since I won, but it's my game was right the whole time. I felt I was playing the right way. Everything was going successfully. Of course, it's very frustrating when you're not winning, and it's tough. I think Flats and Helly kept my head on straight, but they were really happy with the way I was playing, and I was really happy with the way I was playing. I just wasn't getting wins, and at the end of the day, it's our job to get wins, but I was happy with my game, so the result came.
Were you starting to think you might need to get a shutout to win?
You never.
Perfect.
I know what you're saying. That, yeah, honestly, it did creep in, but you never want to think that. You never want to think that. You never want to say, hey, I got to be perfect, I got to do this tonight, I got to be that. But I want to just play my game and be me and be what I have to, and just do what I have to do and have fun out there and play my structure. And you don't want to have to start creeping your mind, but sometimes it does. And I'm a human being, so sometimes it does.
Love hearing from Eric Comrie, always a great guest on this program for many years. And yeah, I think there are, always people in our chat saying, hey, get a better backup goalie, complaining about the, backup goalie's always a very popular character. But you can't really fault his game. The 2 before that, he gave up 1 in regulation to LA. They won in overtime. And he gave up 2 last week to Calgary in a game where the Jets were not able to score on Dustin Wolf. So give up 2 again against Calgary, get the win. Again, very, very nice to see. And he did talk about if he took it personally that they couldn't score for him. This is one of the top scoring teams in the league, and just 8 goals or 12 goals in the 8 games. It's not going to get it done.
I'm a competitor at the end of the day. I'm a human being. I want to win games. I want to win stuff. And just sometimes, for some reason, we weren't scoring a lot of goals, but sometimes it's my job to stop pucks, and I just try to play my game, do what I had to do consistently. And I think Flats and Helly told me if I keep doing it my way and keep playing my way, the results will come. Don't worry, don't stress about it. He said Helly's same thing. He's been the same thing kind of thing. It's just keep doing your thing.
And when you see teammates coming out game after game saying, we feel we let Eric down, we got to be better for Eric, we got to score some goals for Eric, must be reassuring when teammates, they have your back, right?
Oh, for sure. We're such a, you guys know, you guys see it every single day. We're a very tight group in this room. We're very, very good friends. All of us are very close. Shifley married me for, he's literally my officiant at my wedding. So, we're a very close group in here. We have a lot of fun together, and it's a great time.
Fun together, having a great time. Connor, I think, you've seen a lot of stuff from other teams around the NHL this year, and when a team's winning, you have these friendships, you have these, long-standing bonds that have happened for a long time. I think it's pretty good for, the culture and what they've built here in the room over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, I love that answer from Comrie. He's like, Scheifele married me. I mean, like, how much closer can you really get to a teammate, right? The culture has really shifted over these past couple of years, and I know Adam Lowry's currently injured, but he deserves a ton of credit as the captain over the past couple of years here. Rick Bowness came in, and that was one of the things that he outlined that he wanted to achieve. He wanted to get the Jets back to the playoffs. He wanted to shift the culture, and I think right now we can sit here and say that he was successful in doing that. And Adam Lowry played a big role in that as well as the captain. And even without him, the Jets are stepping up. Clearly, they're tight as a group, and they're stepping up both on and off the ice, leading to a 3-game winning streak in the middle of late January here.
Yeah, and we do have to talk about funny part of the post-game media with Eric Comrie,
Yes.
where he, you saw Ken Wiebe on the show last week, where he's growing a bit of a mustache. He, wears a visor for hockey. It got cut on his upper lip, has to hide the stitches. And Eric Comrie took some notice there. And I guess Ken was asking about Gabe Vilardi and his play in the power play. And Comrie turned the tables on Ken. Here's the question.
Most of what Gabe Vilardi's effort till tonight, Eric?
First of all, is that a mustache you're growing there?
Some stitches you were trying to
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I like it though. It looks pretty good. But yeah, just to be honest, that whole line's pretty good. They score a lot of goals. Vilardi, Casey, Scheifele, pretty good players. They know how to score and they know how to play the game, and it's a pleasure to watch that line play because they are a lot of fun.
There's Eric Comrie turning the tables on Ken. I'm sure that'll come up later in the week. It might come up with his colleague, Mike McIntyre, and Jeff Hamilton. Connor, are you a visor guy when it comes to hockey? You got the full bird cage.
This is one of my, pound the table. I'm going to wear a cage forever because, I'm sure Ken has his reasons for wearing a visor, but, come on. I'm playing, middle division beer league hockey at Dakota. I'm not wearing a visor. What's the point? I'm just gonna get a puck to the teeth and lose teeth for no reason, right? So I'm a cage guy. Good. And I will remain a cage guy. What about you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we need you here with a good-looking face for WST Sunday. We're on YouTube now. People have to look at us. I can't have you coming in, Connor, because with a black eye or some busted open teeth. Because you're wearing a visor. Although I will say, I've been on teams where it started off with a lot of visor guys, but over the years, people keep getting hit in the face, and more guys have taken them off and put on the cage. Ken, we won't be on Kenny and Randy anymore with a busted open face. We're about to talk some football, some Blue Bombers with Jeff Hamilton shortly, but I did have to ask. We'll get more into the Jets with Mike later on, but there was a big day of football yesterday. Championship weekend, AFC Championship, NFC. I'm sure, how pumped are you to watch this Super Bowl rematch, Chiefs-Eagles from 2 years ago?
Oh, I am beyond excited. I'm just oozing with enthusiasm. I can't wait. This is going to be so much fun. No, besides the Seahawks, who are the 49ers' biggest rival, I think these are my two least favorite teams in the NFL. So that does kind of suck. But what I'm most not looking forward to is the discourse that's going to be happening over these next 2 weeks about how it's rigged and how the Chiefs are, getting all the calls. And yes, they did get some beneficial calls in games, as teams do. They did on the Texans game, which I brought up. And I thought, Mahomes is flopping, which is ridiculous as well. But the discourse this is just a loss for us scrolling social media the next 2 weeks until the game actually happens. And then the game's going to happen, and it's two teams that everyone hates and a head coach that everyone hates and Nick Sirianni. And it's just, we're all going to watch. It's the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, the Eagles have Saquon Barkley, who's, he's fun. Could be offensive player of the year, ripping off big runs. And we are watching greatness with the Chiefs team going for something that no one's ever done, 3 Super Bowls. Winnings 3 Super Bowls in a row. I remember when people hated the Patriots because they started winning, but the Chiefs, they started off as that likable team. They're going to dethrone the Patriots, and now they've turned into the Patriots. Everyone thinks the game is rigged for them, which I don't believe so. They execute better than anyone, on fourth down on either side of the ball, offense or defense. They're always one step ahead. They always seem to get it done. And that's why going into the game, I was like, yeah, they're for sure winning. The Bills had a chance, but they weren't able to come up with the big plays when they needed it, because it's going to be go down to the wire. And that game lived up to all the hype. The first game, NFC, that game was a blowout. Washington, they were a Cinderella team. They didn't have the defense. They couldn't stop the run. But I think the AFC game in the evening, and thankfully the Jets game, ended ended right in time to see the second half. But I thought it lived up to all the hype.
I agree. And the NFC Championship game, just a quick note on that. I thought the Commanders and especially Jaden Daniels were playing really well, but they just couldn't hold on to the ball. They had 3 fumbles that absolutely killed them, and the Eagles scored touchdowns basically every single time they had the ball. I don't think there were many drives where it didn't end in points for the Eagles. So if they didn't fumble, and I know that's a big if, but the Commanders were in that game, and their offense was moving the ball, and they had some drive-killing fumbles. And then, yeah, the AFC title game, you talked about the Chiefs coming into the league as this lovable team. Back in Mahomes' first couple of years, he was this guy that would throw for 50 touchdowns, and every game would be just high scoring. So I think everyone loved them, right? And now they're kind of this methodical, great defense, win by a game-winning field goal type of team. So it's it's a more boring style, maybe more effective. But I think that's why it's kind of wearing off a little bit. And yeah, people have Chiefs fatigue for sure as they're going for their 3rd straight Super Bowl, which we are witnessing greatness. You have to step back and 20 years from now, we'll look back and be like, yeah, Mahomes may be the greatest quarterback of all time. Him and Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, I'll agree with you. You're not throwing for 300 yards, not throwing for multiple touchdowns. He did run for a couple. They did have the play. Everyone's talking about Josh Allen going for the tush push on 4th down. Yeah. Look, I don't know if he got it or not. You can't really see. You can't tell. They called it that he didn't. And I don't know. I think maybe we need to go away from using old guys with a chain and their eyes to spot the ball. There's got to be a better way. But I think if you want to get a first down, you're going to make it convincing. And I wasn't that convincing of a play.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And then, yeah, I see people, wanting to say that adopt how tennis does it with the ball and it's okay, if tennis had 15 NFL sized players on top of the ball when the ball hits the line, where they get it's not, I don't think that same technology would work. But yeah, I actually thought Dalton Kincaid got the first down the play before, or I thought he was had a better argument of getting that first down the play before, and then they did the tush push. I don't know. That was pretty inconclusive to me. Everyone wants to freak out about it because it's the Chiefs. I get it. But yeah, it was that gets a shrug from me.
Yeah. Well, anyways, Connor, it's been great having you on. Jeff's coming. We got some big Bombers talk coming up. So we'll stay in touch here, and I'll let you know what's going on the rest of the show. Thanks again. There's Connor Hrabchak. Follow him on X, Connor Hrabchak 1. Is that right? That's right.
Yes.
Okay, but Jeff Hamilton's coming up, but first, here's Huss.
Do you want to thank the great people over at Rollies Transfer for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk? Keep an eye out on the roads. The new Rollies WST truck is out helping Winnipeggers move to their next destination. Hey, Rollies is family owned and operated and has become the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba over the last 60 years in business. If you've got a move coming up in 2025, get the white glove treatment from Rollies and get a great deal for being a WST listener. Head on over to their website, click on request an estimate in the top right corner, and put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies, and let them know when you're moving, where you got to go, and what needs to come with you. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly, get you a great quote, and get you locked in to make that next move for you and your family in 2025. Moving this year, get the white glove treatment from Rollies. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollies.com. A nice break in the weather today. It's actually gorgeous outside. It was brutal the last few days, and bad news. We're going to get right back to it, which means this is your chance to make sure that you're not on the side of the road calling one of your buddies for a boost or CAA. Make sure that you're ready for what's to come in the next few months in the teeth of Winnipeg winter. And that would be going down to Manitoba Battery, making sure your battery is great. You can get free testing at either Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive. And if you need a new battery for your car or your truck, Shop local, get the best prices in town, and heck, the best service as well. Manitoba Battery will deliver your batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. So give them a call or shop online today at manitobabattery.com and don't get left out in the cold. And hey, our friends at F Apparel are also ready for the new year. If it's new year, new you, new wardrobe, and you need to step up your menswear game, head on down to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in the city as well. Of course, fellas, if you're getting married this summer, you know, they're already working on big wedding plans, and heck, they've got a great deal for a discount for the wedding party when you and the fellas get your suits for the big day. Get on that as well. Pop by and see them, 190 Smith Street downtown. You can also find more information or book a fitting online at their website at EPHapparel.com.
All right, there's Huss. He is currently, people are asking, where's Huss? He's currently in transit to Costa Rica. Maybe he can join and gloat about the Chiefs at some point in the show. I do have to give a shout out to T. Will for the super chat. He says, this is for Remo for telling Huss to stay home so he didn't have to have 2 straight hours of Chiefs talk. Thank you, Remo. Yes, this is Winnipeg Sports Talk. Jets, Bombers, Gold Eyes, Sea Bears, whatever else is going on. But I'm pumped to be joined by Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. Jeff, how's your weekend? You get up to any garage sailing? What's weekend for you like these days?
No, man. Garage sailing season is there is, unless there's an indoor circuit that someone hasn't told me about in all my years of experience. That would be, now the light bulb's kind of going off. I get a couple comments from people saying, why aren't you garage sailing this weekend? But that's an April to deep October for the hardcores kind of situation. So, but this weekend was great, Remo, man. Look at all Sunday was perfect with all the sports that were on, that were on the docket. And I think we moved into a little bit of better weather by the end of the weekend. We're seeing some of that today here. So yeah, I can't complain, man. Life's great. How are you doing?
Yeah, feeling good. I think winter is like Facebook Marketplace time. You got to be scrounging around there.
There's a misconception here with marketplace and garage sailing. They're two very different cultures. Okay, I would argue that Facebook Marketplace is actually a byproduct. It's actually ruined garage sailing because people now go on Facebook Marketplace and they think they can, translate those prices and that culture again to the walk-up crowd. And the walk-up crowd has let's just put it this way: the walk-up crowd has coins in their hands. The Facebook Marketplace group has dollar bills in their hands. So it's just more expensive stuff. So anyone who's and people are, and especially with technology too, it's been getting a little bit difficult because people Google stuff now, right? They go, oh, what's that worth? Wow. And I often hear this at garage sales, oh, that one's trending on, Amazon or, Facebook Marketplace for this and for that. I go, yeah, no, that's great. Well, would you take this, and this for $350? You have stickers on it for $5, and they go, yeah, no problem. Then I get out of there, and that's the life of garage selling, man.
Man, okay, this isn't a Winnipeg garage sale talk, but I feel like we could go for a long time.
Oh, easily
on the topic. But let's talk about the Blue Bombers. It was Paul Freese on Friday who reported that Adam Bighill, he had to call Kyle Walters to find out that he wasn't going to be offered a contract. I'll ask you the first question. I surprised that a veteran player won't be returning to the Bombers this year as we approach free agency, which is February 11 when it opens. Just on Adam Bighill coming back.
Yeah, obviously notable news that a guy in Adam Bighill who's been not just a big part of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers football team, but really a part of the greater football and overall community here in Winnipeg. As we know, he set up, since being here in 2018, he's set up roots in the city. He's built a house in the city. He's got 2 kids and his wife, Christina. They're, active members of the Winnipeg community. So, the idea that that's all been connected to obviously his role as a football player on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and to think that that's coming to an end would be disappointing news for a lot of people. Obviously, there's the chatter that, the conversation that didn't exist or had to wait until Adam spoke with general manager Kyle Walters. I don't know all the details about that outside of Adam's side of the story, if you will. I think it's reflective of a couple different stories. We knew in Andrew Harris's case, he got offered kind of a deal at the 11th hour before free agency, and there's probably more to that story as well, I'm sure. But Andrew left feeling a little bit blindsided, if you will, by the team, or certainly not feeling good about it. Jackson Jeffcoat spoke about it last year, obviously, when he wanted to extend his career and then ultimately decided to retire and not pursue the CFL after he couldn't get a deal done, or Winnipeg told him, very much like Adam Bighill this year, that they were moving on. So, again, it's challenging stuff. And of course, Drew Wolitarsky today, right? We'll get to that. Him finding out that he's not going to be with the team any longer. And, you have some faction of the fan base that says, how can you do that? Look what this guy's done for the organization. He should, I'm not going to say he should be getting a contract every year, but they certainly believe that he should be getting the respect to know where he's at with the team. And, and I understand that certainly. Again, I haven't spoken to Adam. I reported the news about him not returning to the Bombers a few days before he went public and was trying to organize an interview with them. So, that whole situation, I still need to know a little bit more about. I've been told that it's not entirely the case, but again, I think in these kind of situations, there's always a he said part to it. You're going to have different versions of the story, and it probably makes sense somewhere in the middle. But this has kind of been a long time coming, Remo. I mean, I think a lot of fans last year would have been, probably wondering why Adam Bighill was still on the team, right? Despite his accolades, right? You always hear about those. Wally Buono said it famously years and years back, that you would rather get rid of a guy a year too early than a year too late. And so you look at the Bombers roster, and we've looked at this team and really these glory years of making it to the Grey Cup every year and winning a couple championships, and it hasn't looked much different. Again, I think there's an argument to be made that this started last year, again, with the guys like Jackson Jeffcoat, Jamarcus Hardrick going for more money in Saskatchewan, DeMario Houston signing for bigger money in Calgary. So Winnipeg's willingness to move off players that have played well, or maybe in the same conversation have had a struggle to re-sign some players. And again, this is all working under the cap. So I think it might be a lot for Winnipeg fans right now, especially as they kind of feel a bit in the dark about some other elements of the team. But to me, this is kind of business, and business isn't always smiles and handshakes and good feelings. But I do know that, all the players that have been with Winnipeg enjoyed their time while they were in Winnipeg, just would have probably appreciated, a better exit.
Yeah. And, teams in a salary cap league, you've seen this. CFL does a ton of turnover, but you've seen it in the NHL as well. The Blackhawks and the Lightning, it's tough to keep teams together when there's a salary cap. Do you think that the communication strategy for the Bombers when it comes to long-term players like Andrew Harris, basically didn't hear from the team. Adam Bighill is here for so many years, said to Paul Friesen he had to call Kyle Walters to find out if they were offering him a contract. And now the Bombers organization said that they did communicate with him. But do you think, is that just the nature of pro sports, or, should you be letting guys who've been here for so long and done so much for the team, give them a little heads up saying, hey, we're done?
Look, I think in a perfect world, Remo, everybody involved would meet in the middle. They'd embrace in a great hug and share all the great memories they had, and leave with a handshake and a smile and talk about how awesome it is. The fact of the matter is the feelings that Drew Wolitarsky and Adam Bighill are feeling right now would be the same feelings they would have felt if Kyle Walters picked up the phone, took them out for dinner, and told them at the end after paying the bill that they wouldn't be back with Winnipeg. And it's just, again, I see these comments, and I don't think either of them, by the way, handled it wrong at all. I think both are in Drew's case, super surprised. He was, unlike Adam Bighill, was under contract for this season, had a signing bonus due in early February that he won't be getting anymore. And again, those signing bonuses, by the way. I feel like it needs to be a yearly reminder. I'm not agreeing with the format per se or anything. I'm unbothered by it, to be quite clear, is that the signing bonuses in February and January are in place to force the team's hand, understanding that none of these contracts are guaranteed. Obviously, there's that loophole with the tenure and signing a multi-year deal, and half of your base salary is now guaranteed under the new CBA. But a lot of these signing bonuses get put in place for that exact reason, so that in January, with weeks ahead of free agency opening, where you stand, what team you'll be playing for, right? And if they had signed if they had issued Drew his signing bonus in early February before free agency opens in February 11th, he'd be feeling very confident about his future in Winnipeg. Obviously, them willing to give him that money. But, and Adam Bighill, the same story, right? Like, he didn't have a deal for this year, but would have obviously appreciated a better line of communication. And I mean, if you look at Adam, I think if you look at the years of service here, all the accolades he climbed up, he would consider himself, a top priority, right? So that's the other thing when you look at like kind of the timing of all these things. Adam is 36 years old. He is coming off a torn ACL. He says his rehab's going well, and I don't think there's any reason not to believe that, and he wants to continue his career, and I don't think there's a reason to rule out a guy like that, but you have to make those decisions. Tony Jones is a cheaper and younger option, right? So, and you can make the argument possibly a better option on the field. So those are just the kind of the messy parts of the business. And when you get treated like family here and all those years that they have been treated here, and then you get kind of the business side of the deal, especially after taking, probably team-friendly deals in the years before, certainly has been the case for Adam. It's been well documented over the years, what he's made. So I think it's just a really challenging thing to decipher and go, yeah, this makes sense, or this doesn't make sense, or this is the bad guy, this isn't the bad guy. That being said, I do think, if you are going to be a team like Winnipeg, and unlike a team like Calgary for all those years that would lose their high-end players because they refused to pay the top dollar, and then those players felt they were worth more and they would go get that rather than trying to find a happy medium and keep them around. I think it's like going from the hot tub to the cold tub. It's a stark change. It's a stark change of how you've been treated. You get this feeling that, you're no longer, it's a weird feeling for all athletes. It's not just the Canadian Football League. It's not just football. It's when your career is kind of on that back nine and coming to an end. It's hard to kind of understand and appreciate all the moves that leave after that. Not everyone's going to be a Mike Miller, where you were forced out of your career with an injury, which was in and of itself a very challenging thing for him, only to become, the special teams coordinator the next year. And while you're off that traditional path of playing in the year-to-year routine, you do stay in the same city. So I think right now it's a tough pill to swallow. I'll end it on this, Huss. It's not easy for the Bombers either. It's not like they're sitting there laughing about the whole process. I know this one was tough with Drew Wolitarsky. I imagine it was tough with Adam Bighill, and it's been tough for a lot of the big names that have put a big chunk of their career, in some cases their entire career, here in Winnipeg with the Bombers.
Yeah, well said. Jeff, appreciate your insight. Jeff Hamilton, Winnipeg Free Press, weighing in here on the Blue Bombers. Now, let's look at the roster. I think Adam Bighill not coming back. I think the writing was kind of on the wall. You mentioned Tony Jones. We talked about that for a while. But still, when you see a player who's a longtime part of the organization, part of the community, seeing he's not going to be back, I don't know. I guess for fans of the player, it's certainly sad that you're not going to see, Bighill number 4 running out there. I'm wondering if we're going to see him, in shorts and a T-shirt out in -40 weather on Instagram anymore. But it seems like the Bombers' linebacking core is set here into free agency. They did sign Shane Gauthier, Kyrie Wilson. You mentioned Tony Jones as well. So how is that looking as we approach the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think there's some question marks. I think that's probably an area of the roster that they're not concerned about, right? They got Red Hot Comrie at strong side. They have Tony Jones in the middle, and they have Kyrie Wilson, assuming he can stick and stay healthy at weak side. Now, there is other options at weak side. And the other part, too, is to consider is that the weak side linebacker position is known as the position where U.S. players are easy to find. Scouts' easiest jobs are up. One of their easiest jobs is finding a will linebacker. They need to find somebody who can, who is athletically gifted. Obviously, there's no shortage in that. And I don't think, as far as scheming goes, you ask them to do as much. It's just kind of, it's one of those easier positions to fill, both in a skill and schematic reasoning. So that's one thing. But you look at around the roster, and there still are question marks. I think, you look at the Drew Wolitarsky situation, and he was making about $110,000. Well, I think, I'd mentioned before, but I think Kevin Clercius is making much less than that. And the Bombers believe that he's a good option, a guy who can come in and play that role well physically and become a reliable, catch grabber. But you look at the other receivers and Dalton Schoen and Kenny Lawler, and I don't know that the cost savings of Drew Wolitarsky being released is going to translate to more money to sign both of those guys. I think that's going to be a really interesting situation. I think it's comparable to last year in Brady Oliveira and Dalton Schoen, only in the fact that these are two top end players, not just on the Bombers, but in the entire CFL. The main difference here is the two guys they're talking about, and Lawler and Schoen, play the exact same position. We saw what happened with Brady Oliveira. He turned into the best player in the CFL, named the most outstanding player in the 3-down league. And so that was a great bet. And Dalton Schoen got hurt. So now, and played hardly at all as he recovered from a torn knee. So now they're in a situation where they're looking at Kenny Lawler and Dalton Schoen and trying to figure out, I think, who they want between the two, because I don't think it will be possible to bring them both back. And not just because it will be tough to work, upwards of more than $500,000 between two receivers in the CFL salary cap, but I don't think they want to. Like, I don't think that this is, and it's not that they don't want both of those players on the team. They love both of those players. They consider both of those players, again, not just two of their best players, but two of the best players in the league. There's just no history in the CFL that suggests that signing two high-end receivers for that much money is going to translate into a Grey Cup victory. And so that's, I think, the things they're weighing their situation. And the whole thing too, Remo, is they don't have an offensive coordinator yet. So that doesn't seem to be, I'm not going to say it's not a priority. It has to be amongst the top priorities. It's not feeling like one. Now, Mike O'Shea, I've said this on the show a couple different times, is very secretive in his process. He wouldn't want anybody knowing anything about what he's doing, who he's talking to, and all that stuff before he makes a decision. But we are getting close here to February 11th free agency. We are, there are players that are asking questions about who is running this offense this year. And, while it might be a different situation if your head coach had, was an offensive guru, Mike O'Shea is not an offensive guru, and will need to bring somebody in, even though he has a good idea on how he wants to play, how he wants his offense to perform. It'll just be interesting to see who that is. So, and I think I'll say to end this, long rant here, I'd say that there's a lot of concern with Bomber fans about it, but I don't see these moves, whether it's Wolitarsky, Adam Bighill, or the lack of an OC, as some kind of suggestion that this team is going to be building for anything for, in years to come. And what I mean by that is building, like in a building year. This team wants to win the Grey Cup on home soil in 2025, and will be doing everything possible to put together a team that will win the West Division again. And I don't think that they're far off. That's the thing about this. Neither of those guys who got their releases this week were able to play in the Grey Cup this past year. Now, the Bombers got their asses kicked in the Grey Cup, but they weren't part of a lot of the last bit of the season, really since Labor Day, right? So the Bombers still have the first place team roster there. Now, what will the impact be of losing two guys that were very popular in the room? I think those things do need to be considered, but I don't see these recent moves as the Bombers being in some kind of trouble. I see them prioritizing their roster differently maybe than previous years, and we all know something needs to change after 3 straight Grey Cup losses.
Yeah, Jeff, you're really hitting on all the topics here. You touched on the linebackers there, the receiving group, the OC, and I'll agree with you about the two, players that they cut. Veteran players making a lot of money, at a certain point you do have to make some tough decisions, and teams do that all the time. I think you mentioned they didn't play in the Grey Cup, but I just think players, you have this familiarity that you're kind of sad to see it go if you're a fan of the team, if you're wearing the jersey or you cheered for a player for so many years. So we'll see where those two guys end up. But as far as receivers, I wondered like, what did the Dylan Mitchell signing mean for Lawler and Schoen? So you were going to say they're only going to bring back one. If you had to say, which one do you think returns?
I have no idea. Like, I honestly think that's the conundrum right now. I mean, I don't want to completely extinguish the chances of bringing them both back, of them both being in Bombers jerseys, and excitement that fans would get from that reality. It just, in the conversations I've had and the people I've talked with, not just in Winnipeg, but around the league, it just doesn't make any sense. It just, they need to have that money for other places as well. And as far as who would they choose, I think that's probably the biggest issue right now, is that they knew that answer would already be done. I think the challenge here is looking at both those players, and Kenny Lawler is a unique player. He's a guy that came onto the scene in Winnipeg. We all know he left for Edmonton for that 1 year, became that first receiver to eclipse $300,000 a season in the modern era. And then came back to Winnipeg, right? Took a bit of a haircut, but also has a bit of a history here, right? Got a DUI in Winnipeg, got injured last year, took some offside penalties that a lot of, I think people were looking at and being like, wondering where his head's at with the offense. And then you look at Dalton Schoen. He's maybe not the dynamic, guy who's going to make 50-50 balls heavily in his favor like a Kenny Lawler, but tell me a guy who's got more open in this league than Dalton Schoen, and I'll call you a liar, because the guy was just absolutely incredible. He adopted the waggle like no one we've seen in some time in this league, particularly for a guy coming out of the U.S., and to transition that into leading the league in yards and touchdowns in his first year, and pretty damn close to both of those, if not leading the league in touchdowns in his second year, despite being injured. And there's a lot to like about him, and that's the irony in all this, Remo, is that you could look at 2022 and say that the Bombers didn't win the Grey Cup, or the Bombers would have won the Grey Cup had they had Kenny Lawler on their roster. And then I think a lot of people are looking at this past year's team and saying, if Dalton Schoen was there in the Grey Cup, that was the one missing piece to them finding a championship. So, I think, again, it's tough. Two guys that are well liked in the locker room, all those things, right? So we'll see what happens here, but I don't think it's, of all the surprising moves for people, I think one of the least surprising moves is the inaction there, because I do think Winnipeg is still very much considering who they want, how much they can get each player for, and if it's possible, seemingly impossible, but if it is possible to get both, what would that look like?
Yeah, and you mentioned the OC before, still waiting. No OC. I don't know if that's delaying anything or not. You said, probably not, but I guess backup quarterback, we're still waiting. I see Chris Strevler posting on Instagram. He's rehabbing, just had a baby as well. Jake Dolagala is under contract. I mean, are they going, like, what's going to be plan B if we see Zach Lurs get hurt, like we did see in the Grey Cup?
Yeah, so I'm still, as far as the OC, just to put a bow on that, I don't have a lot of new information outside of just leaning on, which isn't a fact, but hoping from a reporter's perspective, and certainly if you're a fan, that it gets done before February 11th when free agency opens, right? I think that's a fair, if not, I think it'd be ridiculous if you didn't have your OC in place by the time the free market opened, because I think teams that were looking to play for you would want to know what what the attitude of your offense is. And well, again, I think Mike O'Shea could offer that answer. I think it's just better to come from the guy running the group. As far as what else were you asking about? Sorry, Remo, I kind of blanked there.
QB?
Yeah, sorry, backup QB. Like, I think Strevler is, probably the plan. Who knows what could be with his future? He was, I'd be pretty dumb not to mention he is best friends with Drew Wolitarsky, and what the ripple effect of him finding out that news, blindsided by that news, will have on his, whatever potential of signing. But I do know there's interest in bringing Chris back, and then whether Terry Wilson is a guy that they continue to develop, or if they, did they get enough answers from him last year? I guess we'll have to wait and see. He's still on the roster, so I mean, those are all very important questions to ask, and hopefully we get answers here sooner than later. But I still think there are a couple items that need to get knocked off the list before we start talking about their number one's backup.
Yeah, and just moving on from the Bombers, quick thoughts on the Jets as they go 2-0, sweep the weekend, 3-game win streak. Have to be feeling pretty good in first place as we approach the Four Nations Cup break and the trade deadline.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that the trade between New Jersey and Colorado kind of opened up some floodgates. I think you've been hearing lots of talk and chatter with teams and whatnot, but I think it's Carolina. I think it's very interesting. The Four Nations Cup timeline, because I've been hearing lots about teams wanting to make those trades, get players in, and use that time to, ingratiate the player to the team, and even go as far as to suggest this much, that it's enough time to find out if he's not a good fit. So it's not even finding out and ensuring that he is a good fit, but that time ahead of the trade deadline could then be used to decide whether or not you'd flip that player, right? So I don't think, obviously teams aren't looking to flip players they pick up, but it does kind of give you that wiggle room to get in, figure out how they fit with your team, see them for a little bit, and then obviously decide by the trade deadline. But, the Jets are in a very, very good position, both in salary cap dollars and standings, to make a real push here. The thing about the Jets, though, is that I just don't see them being, and they never really are a team that gets the biggest fish. And giving credit to Kevin Cheveldayoff in the past, he usually pulls a bit of a rabbit out of its hat and trying to figure out, some of the guys that might be good fits for Winnipeg that aren't going to break the bank or whatever, be that one fish that everybody is trying to get, right? And so I don't know. I think of some players that I think would look good on Winnipeg, and obviously I think they need to add some pieces to the back end on defense, and I think they need to be and certainly be adding some strength and muscle up front, including a second centerman, and guys that I look at, like a guy like Ryan O'Reilly would be a really great fit in Winnipeg. I think, other players like, I think a dream market might be Ryan Strome, those kind of guys that are on teams that are a bit up there in age, or on teams have a couple years, in Ryan O'Reilly's case, have a couple years left on their deal. I think Winnipeg, if they're, I'm sure they're looking at this year and the next couple of years as their big windows here. But I don't, I feel it's going to be one of those teams that kind of, one of those players that we've seen in the past, whether it was Paul Stastny, and Sean Monahan wasn't a massive surprise, but I think the timing might have been unique, right? So, you look at those kind of things, and I think, we'll see what's up the Jets' sleeve. They're just in a great position to make some moves, and I think that's with the money they have. I think the hope there for fans obviously is that they continue to play the way they are, but add those complementary pieces for what will hopefully be a long playoff run.
Yeah, we're tuning in. I remember last year when they got Monahan, one of our highest rated shows of the year, so most viewed. So it was certainly exciting around these parts. Jeff, thanks for taking the time to hop on today. Great insight on the Blue Bombers. As always, looking forward to reading whatever's next for you in the Winnipeg Free Press.
Always a pleasure, my man. You'll probably get more info from Mike here coming up. So enjoy, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Perfect. Thanks so much. There he is, Jeff Hamilton. His colleague, Mike McIntyre, with the Free Press coming up for the Jets talk portion of this hour. So here's us. Then we'll get to Mike for some more Jets conversation.
Do want to thank our friends at Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto, founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, now coast to coast, but with 3 Winnipeg locations to serve you. Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete those projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop down to the location on Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or for the folks in Westmount in Brandon, and check it all out for you. And of course, you can get working 24/7, 365 on those ideas by checking out the Princess Auto website and shopping online as well. Be a minute before we're at Princess Auto Stadium, but we've got that Bomber schedule, so we'll count down to the days. And in the meantime, pop by your local Princess Auto today. Got to give a big cheers to our friends at Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. Speaking of Princess Auto Stadium, Canadian Club, of course, is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Looking forward to seeing and cheersing many of you in the north end of the stadium at some point next year. But in the meantime, 12 months a year, Canadian Club is Canada's favorite original Canadian whiskey since 1848. Pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts and look for the Canadian Club display featuring Canadian Club Classic, Canadian Club 100% Rye, and more. And when you're popping by your local beer store, keep your eyes out for Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, pre-mixed cocktails in cans available at vendors throughout the city. Also want to thank our friends at Wallace & Wallace for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Wallace & Wallace has been the fencing and overhead door specialists and leaders since 1946, serving both commercial and residential customers. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, Wallace & Wallace has every kind you could possibly need. Vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if in 2025 you might be thinking of a new overhead garage door for your home, talk to the gang at Wallace & Wallace. They have Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors, which means they'll have one to perfectly match your home and look great and add value to your home as well. Give Wallace & Wallace a call, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will be happy to pop down and arrange a time to come out and see you and give you a free estimate. You can also check them out online at wallacefences.com, wallacedoors.com, or pop down and see them at their showroom on Lawson Crescent, just off of Kenaston.
There's Huss. He might even be joining later in the show to gloat about the Chiefs win. Although we'll see if the people in chat are interested in hearing that, but we'll check it with him. I know he's very excited with the Jets' back-to-back wins this weekend. We did have a question in chat there, Scott Westman, about the upcoming bourbon tasting, part of the Whiskey Festival. Save the date, February 27. That's a month. We will have the ticket information for subscribers on our newsletter first. So winnipegsportstalk.com, scroll to the bottom. I should also mention we have Manitoba Moose tickets we're giving away to the game on February 9th against Ottawa. You can enter to win that on our website. It's running all week, winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. Let's bring in Mike McIntyre. He's had a busy weekend at Canada Life Center, covering the Winnipeg Jets wins. Mike, how was your Winnipeg sports weekend? Oh, we got a special guest. It's Mike and Piper joining us. Piper McIntyre. What's going on, Mike?
Say hello, Piper. Not too much, Remo. Good to be home. I think you can see who is really happy that I'm home here for the next while. Weber, my colleague Ken Weeb, he's on the road for us for this week's Jets trip. So Piper is very excited that I will be home, I'll be home for a while because, of course, the Jets, they don't have a whole lot of games coming up here. Just 5 now before the Four Nations break. And then, of course, a 2-week pause. And so, it's crazy. Like, talk about feast and then famine, right? The Jets just played their 10th home game last night in the last 25 days. They've been at home here a ton. And now they're going to play twice in the next 4 weeks and 3 times in the next 33 days. So I hope all the fans who were in the building this weekend, and you got to see 2 wins if you were, enjoyed it, because there's not going to be a whole lot of it coming up here in the foreseeable future. And Piper, for one, is very happy to have her dad home for a while.
We complained about the schedule, all these road games, all these 4 and 6, all these time zone changes, but I think we do need to take time to praise the schedule makers for all the games in this freezing January. Like, what a great time to bring other teams into Winnipeg. The week started off interesting. You were on the road in Utah for the first game. I remember we had you on this show, but the game ended with Scott Arniel calling the team out for their embarrassing performance. That's what he called it. But the Jets seem to have really responded with a win in Colorado, and now back-to-back wins here at home on the weekend against Utah and Calgary.
Yeah, there's been nothing embarrassing about Winnipeg's performance in the 3 games since they were kind of publicly shredded by their coach. Scott Arniel went to that tool that's in every coach's toolbox. I don't imagine, Remis, if you're a coach, you can't pull that one out too often during the course of a season, because if you do, it's going to lose its effectiveness. And certainly for Scott Arniel, he's a rookie head coach in the sense that rookie with the Jets. This is his first year, but he's been in the league a long time. So I suspect, he knew what he was doing. But at the same time, I'm sure a little part of him was wondering how it was going to be received by his group. Don't forget, there's a lot of the same players here that, let's just say they didn't appreciate when Rick Bowness called them out publicly a couple years ago. Who can forget the lack of pushback comments after the playoff elimination to Vegas? And I think we all remember that exit interview day with the Jets, which kind of sounded a bit like a therapy session for some players who, they weren't happy with the coach. So, Scott Arniel pushed some buttons, and they appear to have worked, because the Jets certainly came out with a solid effort in Colorado last Wednesday, to wrap up that trip. And now 2 good showings at home. Let's be clear that the teams Winnipeg just beat at home were both coming in here on the second half of back-to-backs. And again, you talk about the schedule. There have been times this year, Remo, where the schedule has absolutely worked against the Jets. And there are times when it's worked in their favor. And you could say that about every single team in the league. That's just the nature of an 82-game marathon. It ebbs and it flows. And still, the Jets, on paper, they should have beat Utah and Calgary coming in off back-to-backs. And they did. And they beat them both pretty soundly. The Jets, it couldn't have worked out better for Winnipeg this weekend, really, because both Utah and Calgary, they go into Minnesota before coming here. They deprive the Wild, the division rival of the Jets, from gaining any ground or getting any points. And then they come in, the Jets get to face the other goalie. In the case of Calgary, I think that was especially noteworthy because we saw Dustin Wolf absolutely goalie the Jets 8 days earlier. Dan Vladar is no Dustin Wolf, that's for sure. The Jets probably would, I think they would have won that game last night, even if Dustin Wolf was in net the way they played, but it would have been a little more difficult. So the Jets took advantage, and good for them. Now they'll carry this 3-game win streak into a very interesting 3-game road trip that, Remis, I'm having a hard time remembering a road trip of this duration, just 3 games where there are literally so many compelling storylines. As much as I'm happy to be home, as much as Piper's happy to have me home, I am a little jealous of Kenny being on this one for us at the Winnipeg Free Press because of the storylines. You've got, Patrick Laine tomorrow night, and that's a big development. Laine hasn't played against the Jets in quite some time. So you got Laine against the Jets. Then on Thursday, you've got the big rematch with the Bruins after that memorable outing where the Jets pumped Boston, but that was the Trent Frederick on David Gustafsson game. And then on Saturday, the marquee one of them all. You've got number 1 in the West versus number 1 in the East. You've got the PL Dubois. You've got the Alex Ovechkin angle as he chases Wayne Gretzky. It was a productive week for the Jets, and now it's a most interesting week ahead for the hockey club.
Storyline Friday morning where he said, oh, yeah, I want to be more of a prick to play against, scores 3 goals. And Sunday it was Eric Comrie. Oh, is he going to finally get a win? He has played really well. Is he going to get the goal support? And he finally did. I don't know, in terms of player storylines, just going over the skate today, Brad Lambert did get called up. We know there's been a flu bug going through the team with Ehlers' game time decision, but did play on Friday. Morrissey game time decision yesterday and did play, but did not lead the team in minutes like he normally would. It was Dylan Sandberg yesterday. I mean, is there anything to read into this Lambert call up, and where is the team at health wise? Because it seems like Adam Lowry is the only player who's injured right now.
Yeah, I think Lambert is just insurance, because don't forget the Jets, as they were constructed last night, they had no extra forwards in the fold, with Lowry being injured, and we know he for sure isn't going to play on this 3-game road trip. They have no 13th forward with them right now. They could afford to do it yesterday to not have one, because the Moose were at home, the Jets were at home, and let's say a player woke up from his nap yesterday afternoon and was sick. They could have made a really quick recall if they had to in time for the game. They also could have played a 7D and 11 forward, because they do have 2 extra healthy defensemen. But going on the road, and the Moose will be on the road as well, you don't want to be caught short, right, in case something happens. So at this point, I know lots of people would love to see Brad Lambert get in the lineup. I think he is the 13th forward on this road trip. Does that mean that he doesn't get in a game? I wouldn't say that. I mean, maybe he does. Certainly the health of players will play a role in that, and I guess the team's performance. But yeah, I think it's just to have that extra bit of insurance when you're away from home. And so now the Jets they're back to 23 men on the roster, with Lowry being the one guy on the IR. And so they have 2 extra defensemen, 1 extra forward as they hit the Eastern road trip here.
Yeah, all the extras you mentioned skating today: Ville Heinola,
Yes.
Colin Miller, Brad Lambert. It sounded like, from what Scott Arniel said yesterday, that we're going to see Ville and Colin Miller in the lineup at some point in the future. They seem to be happy with what they've gotten from that third defense pair.
Yeah, it's he uses don't hold your breath.
All right.
He, like Scott Arniel also said earlier in the year, that there was going to be a bit of a rotation, and that was when Dylan Coghlan was I think a healthy scratch for like 29 straight games or something like. And again, the Jets were playing really well and they were healthy, so they didn't have to make a change. I know Scott Arniel said the other day that it's clear they have a top 4 on this team and then more of a bottom 4, right? I mean, Morrissey, DeMello, Pionk, Sandberg, that's your top 4. When those guys are healthy, they're eating up huge minutes. They're all going to play, probably 20 plus minutes. And then the other 4 defensemen, in theory, there's supposed to be this kind of competition, maybe a rotation. I don't know about that, Remis. I mean, Scott Arniel said the other day that he's got a batting order and he's not sure how it's going to play out. Well, I think we can surmise that right now, Colin Miller and Ville Heinola, they're batting 7th and 8th, and I'm not sure when they're going to get up to the plate. Again, assuming nothing changes like an injury. Logan Stanley is, of course, playing on his offside. I think if we saw a change here, it might be maybe Miller goes in for Fleury and Stanley moves back to his left side, and Miller, it would be Stanley and Miller. But, I think Logan Stanley's game last night was fine. And I think his last couple games have been absolutely fine. And there's nothing, he hasn't, although some will say that even if they weren't fine, he probably still has his spot in the lineup. But I mean, the fact is that, they're winning games, and I suspect he's going to keep rolling with what he has. One thing about Hayden Fleury they like is his mobility, his foot speed, and that's a weapon. And of course, people will say, well, Ville Heinola has good foot speed too, and that hasn't helped his cause. So it is what it is. Personally, I'm exhausted from the Logan Stanley discourse. Kenny and I had our monthly mailbag go up yesterday. In December, I think our mailbag was almost exclusively Logan Stanley related.
Wow.
We could have made it the same this month, but I put my foot down. I had a 1-question Logan Stanley limit this month. So of the 12 questions we tackled, I only allowed 1 on Logan Stanley. But just to put this in perspective, Murat Atesh and I, we were the 2 on the road in Denver last week. We got 65 minutes with Kevin Cheveldayoff, just the 2 of us. I want to say that the 2 of us spent probably 15 minutes discussing Logan Stanley with the GM. For all of those who say, why don't you media ask this question or that question? I'm here to tell you, we asked all the questions. And again, I think some people conflate, why aren't you asking the questions versus I don't like the answers. Why aren't you arguing or debating with the coach or the GM? To be clear, that's not our job. We can ask questions. We can report on the answers. We can opine on the answers, and I've done that a lot. I'm on the record saying I don't agree with all the ways that they've used Logan Stanley. I don't necessarily agree with all the things Kevin Cheveldayoff said about Stanley or Scott Arniel said, but I'm not going to get into an argument with the GM and the coach of the team, who, as Kevin Cheveldayoff reiterated, and I think this is important, folks, we can assume that the coach of the Winnipeg Jets is not deliberately trying to weaken his team to the point that it would cost them points. We can assume that Scott Arniel is fielding the team that he believes, not that I believe or you believe, but that he believes gives his group the best chance to win. I mean, what coach wouldn't be doing that? So these decisions are what they are, and the whole Logan Stanley thing is it's become tiring to me.
Well, yeah, I said before, everything that can be said has been said. So I was just asking about the lineup, wasn't trying to get into a debate, because we can talk about way better stuff, like the league best power play. I know you were in the dressing room like this last week mentioning to some of the players, Mike, about the lack of opportunities for this power play. And it seemed yesterday they finally expressed some frustration. Like, there was only 2 in the game, and there were a number of games in the last 10 where they had 0. Is there anything to read into that at all? And I was surprised that they were, especially Velarde's. Like, I have a lot of thoughts, but I can't really say them.
I would have loved to hear Gabe Velarde's thoughts. But,
I agree.
They would have been costly, I imagine. He would have had the NHL on line 1 today, and he would have had to get his checkbook out, I imagine, if he shared them with us. So to put it in perspective for people who haven't maybe looked at the math, heading into yesterday's game, over the last dozen games, which goes back to New Year's Eve in Denver, the Jets have had 16 power plays total in 12 games. That's 1.3 power plays per game. That is an insanely low number. And of those 12 games, 3 of those 12, so 25% of those games, they have not had any power plays. And I don't believe there's ever been a game at all in that stretch where they've had more than 3. So, and there have been games where the Jets have been shorthanded 3, 4, 5, 6, I think one time 7 times. I think the power plays were 7-1 in one of their games. So something is clearly up. Now, I think firstly, you have to give credit to the other team. Everybody is pre-scouting these days. And when you're facing the Winnipeg Jets, you know that if you take a lot of penalties against them, it's probably not going to be a very good night at the office for you, because they have the best power play in the league. They will make you pay. So don't give them as many opportunities to make you pay. I think part of it, a second part, so I think teams are on their best behavior. They're being coached to be very careful. I think a second part of it is the Jets have maybe not always done the best job in this last stretch of forcing teams to impede them, whether it's not moving their feet enough or, not doing the sort of things that can often lead to penalties. I think some of that is on the Jets. Nikolai Ehlers said as much last week in Utah when I talked to him after the game. He said he didn't want to blame the refs. And of course, the Jets were angry after that Utah game. They were angry at themselves. And Nicola Ehlers said, no, to be clear, this is on us. We are not doing enough to draw penalties. So I think that's part of it. A third part of it, now, by no means, and I know there's folks out there who believe there's some grand conspiracy by the NHL against the Jets. That is not the case. There is no conspiracy. But what there is very inconsistent officiating. And if you watch enough hockey, you will see it night in, night out, involving the Jets, involving the Jets themselves. The Jets get away with things that they probably shouldn't. Right now, it seems like the pendulum has kind of swung against Winnipeg, and they can't buy a power play lately. Look at last night. In the second period, there was what appeared to be the most obvious too many men on the ice penalty, where the puck literally hit two Flames players standing near the bench, and it changed the direction of the play. That should have been a penalty. And so the Jets can't even get the automatic in that case. Now, they didn't have a power play at all through two periods yesterday, and we thought, oh, here they go again. They're going to have another game with none. And then there was an even more obvious too many men in the third, which could not be ignored. That gets called. And then a very obvious hooking penalty. So the Jets did get two cracks, and they scored on both of them, reiterating point number one, which is don't take penalties against the Jets. They'll make you pay. And Remis, you add it all up, it's incredible. As we sit here today through 51 games, 31 remaining, the Jets are at 33.3%. That's literally one out of every three. The Edmonton Oilers last year, or 2 years ago, set the all-time NHL mark, and I may be off by a fraction or two here. I believe it was 32.6, maybe 32.7. In any event, where the Jets are today is historically high. If the season ended today, Winnipeg would have the best power play in NHL history. Now, again, they have 31 games. Can they keep it up? One thing, though, that they would like is to get a little more quantity to go with their extremely high quality of power plays. And if you believe in these things evening out over time, you'd think that the pendulum might start to swing the other way here sometime soon.
Yeah, just looking at the stats on NHL.com, the Jets middle of the pack in power play opportunities in the NHL, 138. That ranks 17th, Mike. And we did touch on this last week. I wanted to get your perspective. You and Murat were in the boardroom at a Denver hotel with GM Kevin Cheveldayoff, having conversations, asking questions. We talked with Murat. There's a video on our channel about it if you want to hear his perspective. But I want to hear what your take was of the mid-season address with you and GM Kevin Cheveldayoff. We touched on the Lone Stanley, which apparently is like 10% of the whole thing, maybe 15%, but possibly more depending on the length. But what else did you gather when it comes to the trade deadline or free agents this offseason?
Well, I'd say Jonathan Toews was about another 10% of the discussion. I know you talked with Murat about Toews, and it does sound, for those thinking Toews is going to waltz in, if it's Winnipeg, he ultimately would sign with, assuming he's able to make a return. It sounds like it's more of a longer term thing, like as opposed to being able to come in and maybe help right away or this season. But that's an interesting bit of news to hear that the Jets have actually had some conversations already with Toews' camp, and for Kevin Cheveldayoff to be as open as he was about being interested in Jonathan Toews, and saying that it would be a great story, obviously, for Jonathan and for the Jets. I think there is some smoke there for sure. We'll see where that goes. A couple things to me. First of all, Remis, and I think Murat would agree, and I think Kevin Cheveldayoff would agree, the setting for the interview, to do it the way we did, which was like a very informal boardroom sit down. I've done a lot of these mid-seasons with Kevin Cheveldayoff. This was the best one yet in terms of the candor, the openness, just the flowing of the conversation. It was so much better than just passing a microphone around in a big crowded room and getting your one or two questions and then on to the next one. Like, this was a dialogue. This was a conversation. And I really enjoyed it. Like, I found Kevin Cheveldayoff, and I know there's people that feel like he never really says anything. And there's certainly a bit of a politician. His brother is a prominent politician in Saskatchewan. So there's a little bit of that in his DNA. But I think he was very engaging, very open. And look, he said it many, many times how much he wants to win with this group, how invested he is in this group. Obviously, the commitments that he's made to certain core players, how much he wants to win a Stanley Cup. And I just got the real sense, Remis, that, we've seen him take some pretty big swings in the past at trade deadlines. I get the sense that he really feels like this could be a special year. And why wouldn't he feel that way? And, I don't know what exactly that will look like between now and March 7th. But I will be surprised if the Winnipeg Jets don't step up to that plate and try and take a big swing or two to try and supplement what they already feel is a pretty special group here, capable of special things.
Yeah, we've seen in the past when the Jets are in playoff position, they have added at the deadline Sean Monahan. I mean, we set records here for show viewership when he hopped on, and that was one that I think surprised, just the timing. That was a month before. When we do the Four Nations as well, which I think impacts decisions.
And I asked Kevin Cheveldayoff if we could see like a similar earlier move this year. One thing he said that was interesting to me is, and people may forget this, until the trade deadline comes, you can't expand your roster past 23. And so as Kevin Cheveldayoff reminded Murat and I last week, when they added Monahan, that was obviously well before the deadline. They had to make a subsequent roster move. And what was that move? They put Declan Chisholm on waivers, and Chisholm was claimed and lost by the Jets. And I say this just especially when we're talking about the blue line, because I do expect the Jets to try and add to the blue line, but I wouldn't expect for sure any blue line related move to happen until probably right at the deadline, because again, unless there's injuries, but right now the Jets have 8 healthy D. And I can tell you, I know this for a fact, they do not want to risk losing anyone that they have on their roster right now on waivers. They don't want to risk losing Hayden Fleury. They don't want to risk losing Billy Heinola. They don't want to risk losing Colin Miller. They don't want to risk losing Logan Stanley. And so if they were to trade for a defenseman tomorrow, all of a sudden now they got 9. You can't carry 9 defensemen. So somebody would have to go. And you have to almost factor that in to the acquisition cost, right? And so I think for that reason alone, and again, it could change. If the Jets got a couple key defensemen that get injured, all of a sudden your need, the urgency steps up. But if nothing changes, I just don't see the Jets making a move, certainly for a blue liner, until really pretty much at the deadline. As for a forward, Kevin Cheveldayoff said so much of it will be determined by what's out there. And, we know the Jets, I'm sure they'll look at the usual suspects that are on trade bait lists, things like that. But we also know, based on their history, Kevin Cheveldayoff will also have his eyes open for other players, a la Paul Stastny in 2018, guys that maybe weren't thought to be available. Nino Niederreiter a few years ago. And Kevin Cheveldayoff likes to make those kind of moves if he can, especially if he could get a guy with term. So, it just makes for a very interesting stretch here. Like I said, I do expect the Jets to be active. I don't know if it'll be early like last year, but I do expect that they will be busy.
All the rumors every day here. So thanks again, Mike, for hopping on. Looking forward to catching up with you next week and reading what you and Ken have in the Free Press.
You bet, Remis. Have a great week. Take care.
There he is, Mike McIntyre. He's on X, Blue Sky, Instagram. He's even showing TikToks of his travel on the Jets road trips. That's Mike McIntyre, WPG, on all those. There was a big trade on Friday, massive, humongous trade in the NHL. Mikko Rantanen from the division rival Colorado Avalanche to the Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for a package that included Marty Necas. I'm super pumped to be joined by Evan Rawal from the Denver Gazette. Coming up next, but first, here's us.
A big cheers from our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out. learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Hey, folks, not only is Boston Pizza your best place in town to gather with your gang for Winnipeg Jets hockey games with pick-a-player contests and chance to win great prizes and swag from Royal Sports, not only is Boston Pizza your number one spot to get together for NFL playoff games and all the big sporting events in the lounge, January is also the month where every single day is Pasta Tuesday at Boston Pizza. Enjoy until the end of the month. Great deals on all your favorite pasta dishes at your local Boston Pizza with Pasta Tuesday promos every single day, 7 days a week at your local Boston Pizza. Pop in today. And of course, if you can't make it or it's a little too cold to get outside, you can always get it hot and fresh to your door, the great taste of Boston Pizza, by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And a huge shout out to our friends at Royal Sports for 40 years plus. Family owned and operated, the number one hockey and sports superstore in town. If you play hockey or have a hockey player in the family, you probably already know that Royal Sports is your one-stop shop for full equipment, goalie gear, sticks, skates, right down to stick tape, pucks, and skate sharpening. But I will remind you, as we look outside and the river trail is absolutely mint right now, many people not necessarily needing an expensive pair of hockey skates, just want to go out and make the most of Winnipeg winter. Royal is the best place in town for some affordable recreational skate options that won't set you back maybe the same amount of that a pair of the blades that the pros use. Get on down there. While you're at it, check out all the best selection of Winnipeg Jets merchandise, Bomber gear, NFL, NHL, you name it, they've got it. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Don't forget to check out all the cool stuff on the King Skate, Snow, and Surf side. And give them a follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops, specials, and sale information. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Great sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk.
All right. There's Hess. He will be back on, well, he'll be appearing throughout the week. He's out of town in Costa Rica. Looking forward to hearing more of that. But I'm also looking forward to chatting with our next guest, Evan Rawal from the Denver Gazette. Big trade, as we mentioned. Mikko Rantanen to Carolina, along with Taylor Hall. Chicago getting a third-round pick, and Colorado receiving Marty Necas, Jack Drury, a second-round pick, and a fourth-round pick. And Evan is on the road with the Avalanche. Evan, thanks again for hopping on. I imagine it's been a bit of an eventful road trip, more so than you thought it was going to be when Friday morning started.
Yeah, a lot more so. I was expecting a quiet night in Boston, ended up being a little crazy, and then it's slowed down today, but it was a crazy 48 hours there. I
mean, there's always conversations among fans and media when a player enters into a season as an unrestricted free agent, but Mikko Rantanen's been a huge part of this team, won a Stanley Cup. I mean, was something like this come as a total surprise to you? Or, I mean, we had known that they hadn't really been negotiating, but I mean, where did it land on the surprise meter on Friday?
It was up there. I mean, there were kind of rumblings like, oh, maybe they'll trade him if they can't come to a deal at the deadline. But, you know, the deadline's weeks away at this point. So it was a surprise for it to happen so quickly and just happen while they're on the road. Like, they had just landed in Boston, for them to have made the trade and brought him with them. It was a huge shock, and a shock to us working with the team, and then us, like the fans are still kind of getting over it. It's just, you trade a guy who's been here a decade, who was here when the team was really bad, and he's grown up with the team, and it's just a lot to take. And I think the shock is starting to wear off, but it was pretty crazy there for a couple of days.
Yeah, do fans, seem I mean, do you buy that? They weren't going to be able to agree to a contract because it seemed that's what led to the whole trade. And they said, and management was said, hey, if we can't sign him, let's see if we can get something. And I think they did pretty well in getting Marty Necas, who's under contract for next year, and a couple of draft picks as well.
Yeah, I think all things considered, compared to the Jake Gensel deal last year where Pittsburgh traded him and Michael Bunting was the NHL guy that got coming back. Marty Necas is a really good player, and he's fit in pretty well with Nathan MacKinnon. So that's as good a player as they probably could have gotten. So all things considered, they did pretty well. But I think when you're a GM and you're trading a top 10, top 15 player in the world, you're probably not expecting to hit a home run. So there's probably an expectation that they were just not going to come away with this trade with a huge win. But people are still upset about it. There was a subset of people that were thinking that, hey, if you sign Mikko and sign him for even if you give him the MacKinnon deal, that's a lot of money to play your top 3-4 players. So there are some people that were in the camp of they should deal him and try to spread the wealth here and get a little deeper when you have still got some top end guys. So there's shock among a lot of fans, and there's some fans that are happy that something like this happened where they can kind of see the team built a little differently.
Yeah, and Cale Makar, his contract coming up soon. Would they have been able to, if they did pay him what they want, would they be able to field a competitive team, paying 3 guys over $12 million over? What do you think Makar's next contract will be like? Because surely they'll end up locking him up long term.
Well, Nate said it could be $20 million for all he cares, but I don't think the Avs like hearing that. So, he's still got 3 years left on his deal, so it's going to be a couple years until he comes up for a contract. But they're planning for the future. That's the big thing, that he could potentially be the guy that break the MacKinnon cap, and he almost certainly will be. But they want him to be the guy that does that, not Mikko Rantanen. So they're going to be tight to the cap even with this trade. And it essentially came down to the fact that they just didn't want to make Mikko Rantanen the highest paid player on the team.
Yeah, talking with Evan Rawal, Denver Gazette, about the big trade. Now, when the trade was made, they freed up some cap space as well. What does this mean for their approach to the trade deadline going forward? Is Colorado done, or could we see more moves from the Avalanche?
I don't think they're done at all. I think they still have needs that existed before this trade, and they still exist after this. You look at the game yesterday, for example, they won. But they were kind of able to spread out the forward ice time a little bit, but the top 4D played all 22 minutes. I don't think they want to do that more moving forward. I think they want to go out and get another defenseman that can eat some minutes and maybe take some of the load off of, Devontae, Cale Makar, those guys. So I do think they want to go out and get a defenseman, and I think they're still going to be in the market for maybe a center here. Jack Drury is a good player. I'm not sure if he's a perfect fit at third line center. But they're still going to look for maybe a depth forward here that can kind of help out, because there's still the unknown with Valerie Nichushkin. They're not sure when he's going to be able to come back and really be able to help the team going down the stretch.
I got to say, it has to be an interesting season so far covering the Avalanche. We saw them here last year in the playoffs where they absolutely steamrolled the Jets. They've made trades, replaced their entire goalies. You've had the captain Landeskog, out indefinitely with an injury. You mentioned Nichushkin going on as well. What's it been like for you? How would you categorize this Colorado season here, where they're currently first in the wild card and trying to make a push to get in 2 and 3 or catch the Jets here in the Central?
I've been using the word roller coaster because I think it's a roller coaster of a season. They were dealing with so many injuries to start the year, and then they're suddenly slowly starting to get healthy outside of a few guys. And they were playing well. Once they stabilized the goaltending, they were playing really well through December. And then January hit, and it's just been up and down again. So they really haven't hit their stride of, being a consistent team on a nightly basis. Even inside of games, they're not super consistent. So it's been a roller coaster. They're not the same just unbelievable team they were when they won the Cup. It's a slightly different team, and it's not built that way anymore. So they're kind of maybe still adjusting to that. But We still really don't know what this team is because they haven't completely put their healthy lineup on the ice, and maybe they never will. But if they do, it'd be interesting to see kind of how they look and what kind of their needs are after that happens.
Yeah, 4-5-1 in their last 10 here, 60 points in 51 game mark. Can they become a better team when the dust is settled on this trade, on the draft picks, and whatever moves they make next? Can this trade make them a deeper team moving forward, or were they always going to be in a tough spot with Rantanen becoming a UFA and possibly losing him for nothing?
I think they're a good team. Even if they had Rantanen, they're a good team. I'm just not sure that they're a great team. They're kind of still in that scenario. They just don't have that high-end goal scorer that they had before. So the guy that a lot of this leans on is Nichushkin, because it's pretty well known, especially here in Colorado, that their record with Val in the lineup is incredible, and without him, they're a pretty average team. Like they hover around 500 when he's not in the lineup. So once he comes back, and my assumption is that he's going to come back after the Four Nations tournament. I think they're going to kind of just let him heal and get back to healthy once that tournament's done. But once he comes back, we'll have a really good idea of what this team is. But yeah, there's still holes that they've got to plug. I think they're a good team, but I wouldn't necessarily say they're a great team at the moment.
Yeah, it's too bad we've seen the last of Colorado against the Jets. They did play their last game of the season last week. And, the player they acquired, Marty Necas, he's a UFA after next season. Any rumblings that, next year he would sign an extension, or is he looking to hit UFA as well? Because that's why Carolina ended up trading him.
Well, I know Carolina was looking to deal him in the summer, and I don't know if some of that was coming from maybe he wanted to a fresh start. But, I mean, it's probably still early to say if he's going to want to re-sign long-term with the Avs. But through 2 games, it looks like he's the perfect fit for how they want to play, just because there are very few players that can keep up with Nathan MacKinnon when he's flying up and down the ice. And Marty Necas looks like he's maybe one that can do that. So, I mean, if you're looking at it from his perspective, is there a better guy in the league to come play next to than Nathan MacKinnon, where you can kind of, work with him and build up your game from there? So I think he's 26. He fits in with the core of the team. I think they would love to keep him long-term if he's open to that when they can kind of start negotiating this summer.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. I agree. I think, coming into it beside Nathan MacKinnon, what's better than that? And could he be your top-line winger, but at a lesser salary? So, I mean, it was the trade that, I don't want to say broke broke Twitter or whatever saying people want to say, but it certainly perked everyone's ears up on Friday night while I was watching Jets versus Utah. Evan, thank you so much for hopping on while you're at the airport. Appreciate all your insight on the Avalanche, and enjoy the rest of the season, and maybe we can touch base around the trade deadline, as the two teams may not or are not going to face again unless they do again in the first round of the playoffs or later.
Yeah, and that's a very real possibility. So I guess, we'll chat in the future, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Evan Rawal from the Denver Gazette. I have to mention, I just realized my wrong name was on the bar there. I'm doing everything. I put in Mike McIntyre instead of my own name, Michael Remis, during that segment. I guess I was distracted as I filled that out while I was talking to Mike. But big thanks to Evan. I have touched base with Hustler. I think he's in the Toronto airport right now. I am going to give him a call, and you're going to hear me do this. One sec. So I'm going to dial his number. Landed. He's on his way to Costa Rica. He just wants to come on and gloat about the Kansas City Chiefs. I wasn't going to let him, but he demanded the opportunity. So here he is. Hustler, and we'll wind down the show at the end. Huss.
Hello.
Hey, you are live right now on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We just got a wonderful super chat from Tico and Apolly. We just chatted about the Rantanen trade, but I wanted to check in with you. How's it going, Huss?
Well, it is going very well. Obviously, yesterday was quite a day for myself and members of the Kingdom. Mahomes and the boys going back to another Super Bowl. So it was great. And then kind of up and at her early. I am in Toronto right now. We are about 15 minutes or so from boarding our flight out to San Jose, Costa Rica. So I should be there a little later on. But I would be lying to you, Reem, and you know me well. I am still buzzing from yesterday's AFC Championship game. Honestly, another all-time classic between two great teams, two great quarterbacks. And, in all sincerity, the Bills are unbelievable. Josh Allen played his ass off. But Patrick Mahomes, once again, just proved that he's a special one and in some ways almost seems inevitable when you get down to the fourth quarter of a close game.
Yeah, I think that game yesterday, Chiefs-Bills, certainly lived up to all the hype. It looked like the Chiefs were going to run away with it, but Buffalo able to score before the end of the first half, and they just traded chances. And it seems like when you get into that kind of game with the Chiefs, they always seem to find a way to make one more play, whether it's running out the clock at the end or stopping the Bills on fourth down.
Oh, the 4th and 5. The 4th and 5 was unbelievable. And Dan Orlovsky, I believe, there's been some incredible kind of breakdowns of everything that happened. But that play in particular, they had showed that look throughout the game. And on every single time, they'd sort of called it off. So the Bills were somewhat used to that. And Spags, for the one shot on 4th and 5, showed it and then went hard on the left. They knew that Josh Allen would probably be going that way, and it was an absolutely perfect call. He showed why he is an all-time great when it comes to coordinators. Listen, the job that the defense did last week against Houston, in a close game, and then just running over C.J. Stroud with 8 sacks, most of them in the second half last week, I think reminded everybody of it. But the NFL, more than anything, coaching, when you're setting up particular looks and operations on each and every play, coaching can make such a massive difference. And this isn't to discredit Buffalo at all. But the combination of Andy Reid, Spags, and obviously someone like Patrick Mahomes running the offense is you're on the verge of potentially doing something that no team has ever done. How's the chat been today? Any cases of CDS showing it out at all?
Yeah, CDS, Chiefs derangement syndrome. What are the symptoms of Chiefs derangement syndrome, Huss? Is it thinking that the NFL is rigged and the Chiefs get all the calls? Everyone wants to see Taylor Swift.
It's a combination of all of those things. The best is that the NFL wants the Chiefs to win. Like the NFL, which is basically 32 owners, as if the other 31 owners have banded together. You know what? Let's give this small market team that's already had a lot of success, let's just let them keep doing it. That would be great for our team and our operation and our league. And the unhinged tweets suggesting conspiracies that Taylor Swift is somehow, I can't even say it, it's so ridiculous. Taylor Swift and the Taylor Swift effect is somehow influencing NFL officiating in playoff games. It's ludicrous and ridiculous. And there's some people that are regularly somewhat, sane and normal that are actually throwing this stuff out. The thing though that we're seeing now, it's kind of slipping into the media. This business with Adam Schefter yesterday, for the NFL's number one insider to sort of put out a tweet the day of the biggest day of the NFL year outside of the Super Bowl, talking about rule changes for people that don't like what's happened with Patrick Mahomes in the past and naming him was ridiculous. And it just was, the amount of gaslighting by other people from that. He got a ton of pushback. If you guys haven't seen his appearance on Pat McAfee today, grab a clip on X or something. It was something else. Pat gave it to him pretty good at the start, albeit as only McAfee do, kind of saying what people are saying, but giving it to him right when he came onto the program. There was a lot of irrational takes and angles. And at the end of the day, and maybe this is where Shefty was doing it, there's just a lot of engagement farming because there is so much rage bait. I get it. And listen, the Bills have incredible fans. They are a great story. If you had no skin in the game, and you were looking, well, who do you want to win? Is it the team that's just been dominating the last few years, or this lovable team with this great group of fans and this awesome quarterback that might be the MVP that hasn't been able to get past Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs? I'm pretty sure people are going to be on that. But to take it to some crazy levels, and now all the people that are saying, the NFL did this on purpose and it's going to be the worst rated Super Bowl. Well, why would they want to do that? I mean, there's just not a logic involved on it. I mean, listen, there were some really tough and really close calls in that game. But I thought John Gruden last night said it best. I mean, when you're talking about third down, fourth down, you need to make sure you get that there. And I'm here for the argument that maybe he did get it. I mean, there's an argument that he was just shy, but there's absolutely nothing unequivocal about it. And you're playing with fire if you're leaving literal inches, or in some cases, probably millimeters, up to 7-year-old guys that aren't even full-time employees without the benefit of legitimate technology. Now, that's another story entirely for the NFL. But none of this is going to take away from anything the Chiefs have done. And we got a rematch from Philly and Kansas City 2 years ago. And of me, this couldn't be any better. I mean, the guy that I can't stand the most, Nick Sirianni and the Eagles. I don't have as much heat for the Eagles overall. They got a lot of great talent on their team, but you want to see if they can spoil the party for Philly once again and do something no team has ever done. Not even the great Tom Brady and the Patriots win 3 in a row and have Mahomes get his 4th Super Bowl earlier than Brady did in his career.
It is amazing to see Patrick Mahomes get to the AFC Championship game in every season that he's been a starting quarterback. But, yeah, I mean, they just seem to find a way every time. And in the NFC game, the Eagles, I mean, they ran all over the Commanders. They had bad rush defense all season. And I am looking forward to seeing, how Saquon Barkley goes up against KC. I mean, James Cook he had one of his better games of the season. And I think it's going to be tough to stop the Eagles' run game. Jalen Hurts had the knee brace. He's got 2 weeks now, 2 full weeks to heal up. I wonder if we'll see a closer game than we did the first time these two teams met in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if you can get much closer than that. Wasn't it 38-35?
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
I mean,
but listen, I mean, the Eagles have this incredible running game, and they have an incredible defense. I mean, I don't think they have the same passing gear that the Bills do, but I certainly think Josh Allen's on maybe a bit of a tier above Jalen Hurts. But it's a team game, and there's different advantages for different teams when it comes to matchups. To me, the most interesting thing, and we'll have a lot of time to get into this next week, kind of with Super Bowl week coverage, is the battle of the defensive coordinators. I talked about Steve Spagnuolo and how brilliant he is proven to be year after year after year. Well, the Eagles have Vic Fangio, who's pretty historic in his own right. And you got these 2 very unique, dynamic offenses and 2 of the best defensive minds in recent NFL history, maybe all-time NFL history, tasked with shutting them down. It's going to be a great matchup, and it should. I know there are people disappointed that we maybe didn't get a little bit more variety, but at the same time, I think you, regardless of who you cheer for, if you can for a minute step back and realize that we're watching not only a dynasty but a group, a team, a coach, a quarterback, potentially accomplish something that has never ever been done before, and it could be some more history coming up a couple weeks in New Orleans. But hell of a weekend yesterday, and as far as the Eagles go, and I'm sure you watched it. Like, I was really pulling for Washington. Jaden Daniels, what a great story he was.
Oh, I just lost him. Sorry, that was my fault. I didn't have enough. I lost him. You know what? He was going on about the Chiefs. We had to say bye-bye. One sec. Let me call him. So I ran out of Skype credit there. 1 second. Let me. That's why the call disconnected. It wasn't, full Chief derangement syndrome here. 1 second. I got to get my credit card out. Do I have it here?
Thank you. You didn't censor me.
I didn't censor you. I guess I'm holding you into the microphone. I think it sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
But you were
we did that all the time when the lock shop when the internet kept going down.
Yeah, hold on. I was gonna say actually though, Huss, I haven't heard you this excited since the Scheifele and Hellebuck signing from the produce section.
I was. I mean, I'm. You're not wrong. I mean, everything. Like, listen, all the noise this week. Like, it legitimately pissed me off as a longtime Chiefs fan, someone that's really, as all regular listeners know, someone that's pretty passionate about the game and certainly the team and everyone that we're talking about. It was kind of like this narrative was trying to take away from the incredible things that this team has accomplished for a long time. And listen, I get it. I mean, I remember what it was like with the Patriots as they kept on winning. And I was certainly one of those people that, couldn't stand it. And maybe there was a little bit of Pat's derangement syndrome. But like with everything with social media now, it's just like there's gas on a fire and it's exponentially crazier. And the things that you hear are crazier. And, I said to everyone, and I texted, Paul, who I'm with here from Mayo Media Network, and the LTE in Edmonton, all the other Bills guys I know. I was pumped for the game yesterday, and I said I got a lot of love for Buffalo, their fans. If they are good enough to beat the Chiefs tomorrow and get it done, I'll be cheering for them in the Super Bowl. But I'm pretty excited to see these guys get a chance to fulfill the call that the shot that they called last year after they went back to back. So I'm glad we can cool things down for the week. Obviously, we'll be down in Costa Rica. It should be a lot of fun, and then get back to it next week, counting down to the big game in New Orleans with the Eagles looking to get back one on the Chiefs for what happened a couple of years ago, and KC looking to make it 3 in a row and etch their names in history forever.
I think I just figured out how to get more Skype credit. Hold on, I want to phone you back so I get the actual phone on here. Let me just call you back.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Because I wanted to ask you about the Jets. Because I mean, what? Here, let me just call you right back.
Yeah. Okay.
I gotta remember hustlers. Does anyone remember anyone's phone number anymore? Remember, you used to know your parents' phone number, all your friends. Coworkers. I mean, I remember all those numbers from so long ago, but anyone you meet now, it just goes into the app and you don't have to remember it. So let me just pull up Hustler's number, which I don't think he would know mine. I don't know, is there anyone that you've met in the last however long that you actually know their phone number? Anyways, I'm just going to dial his number real quick here and then we'll continue the conversation. But Hustler, out of breath when it comes to talking about the Chiefs. He hasn't been this excited since the produce section, as I said before, and it's going here.
Yo, to the Jets we go.
Yeah, we're moving on from the Chiefs. I don't want to lose the chat, Huss, because as you can imagine, people in the chat not as excited as about the Chiefs being in again as you are. But have to be really impressed about what we saw from the Jets. Jets this weekend, Cole Perfetti with the hat trick on Friday. And yesterday with Gabe Vilardi. I mean, 4-point performance. I don't think I've talked enough about how great he's been and what he's meant to the power play on this show today.
Yes, to the chat, a special hello to SK and Gregory. I appreciated their takes yesterday. But yes, to the Jets, awesome weekend. And I mean, we talked about this before. They had a really tough schedule early on, and we talked about some really tough spots and quote-unquote scheduled losses. Well, guess what? You better make it happen on the other side when you're in the home scenario and these teams are playing in Minnesota the night before. And I thought they did an awesome job both Friday and Sunday of taking care of business against Utah and Calgary. And, it's been sort of a quiet week for that top line. So, I mean, to see Gabe pop a couple, Shafe get on the board, and I mean, that goal, I'm sure you've talked about it. The absolute filth from one Kyle Connor on that first one last night was absolutely amazing. Seemed like a great crowd at the game last night, too. A great atmosphere for Wasak night. And I'm just happy that they were able to win, Reem, because as you know, I've been at almost every game this season, but due to a couple commitments and being out of town, I had missed 6 games this year. And despite the fact that the Jets were, 25-3, the team without me in the building was 1-4-1. So they got another win without me there. I will be back for the next homestand. And by the way, Feb 7 Islander game, Friday night. Get your tickets for the next WST night as we look to go 5-0. But it was exactly what you wanted to see the team do and handle their business. After a bit of a hiccup last week with the losses to Calgary and Utah, you get the win in Colorado. You get 2 points against both of those teams again. And be interesting to see how this team looks against Montreal. And then, of course, the rematch against the Bruins after that 8-1 smashing the Jets gave them in Winnipeg. That'll be an interesting one on Thursday night. But I think these guys can see the sort of light at the end of the tunnel with the break coming up for the Four Nations. And hopefully they can have a nice quick road trip out east and then come back and keep things going at home.
Yeah, and you talk about this road trip. Montreal, always exciting in Montreal, Regional 6, Boston as well. But how about Washington? And I don't know if you saw this while you're in the airport, but Washington just signed Logan Thompson to a 6-year contract extension. Logan Thompson, he's probably going to be set, or right now he would be second in the Vezina to Connor Hellebuyck, not named to Team Canada. But Washington, I think, aside from the Jets, that's one of the surprise stories of the year, along with Ovechkin going for the goal scoring record.
Oh, listen, no doubt about it. And Logan Thompson, you want to talk about timing is everything. This guy is having a Vezina caliber season right now in a contract year for a brand new team, for a team that's in, first place overall in the NHL. So, good on him to cash in and to get that security moving forward, and pretty amazing turnaround overall with what the Capitals have done so far. So yeah, that'll be another big one for the Jets. And of course we'll get to see Ovi and the Caps in town later on in March, I guess, after the Four Nations. So listen, a well-earned quiet day for the team today without many players on the ice. They'll get out to Montreal, and obviously the bright lights of Montreal in that venue, one of the best places for visiting teams to play. Hopefully the team can go in, say hi to their old pal Patrick Laine, and keep things rolling before, I guess T. Konopoli wasn't able to convince the Jets to call up Bauer for the rematch in Boston on Thursday before the team left.
Oh, he did just leave a Tyrell Bauer themed super chat, Huss. The comment was, he just used, I don't know, he's talking about something about when the Jets moved to the NHL and they had to lose all their players, I think. Or I forget what he's talking about there, but he did end it with hashtag free Ty Bauer.
I would have, I would not have been opposed if Ty Bauer made the trip and got a chance to play in that Boston game. I'm still a little sour as to what happened to our guy David Gustafsson in that game after the Jets were humiliating the Bruins in the fashion that they did. But right now, they're looking to get wins. The team's putting themselves in a great situation, and going to have a nice stretch here heading into the break in February. We're going to be having a pretty exciting final 25, 26 games as we get ready to see how the playoffs are going to shake out in the West, and can the Jets actually win the Western Conference and get that 1 seed and presumably home ice throughout the playoffs, which is something I don't think we were considering talking about when we dropped the puck in game number 1 of 82.
Yeah, and you mentioned that game against Boston. No Adam Lowry in lineup. It was him who fought Nikita Zadorov. I know you were doing some pre-scouting us and watching the Bruins, and the announcers, they have fond memories of that game as well.
I was watching the Bruins on the weekend, and we heard Jack Edwards and the guys kind of looking ahead to their schedule, and they mentioned, and Winnipeg is coming to town, one of the top teams in the NHL. We won't get into what happened when these two teams played weeks back in Winnipeg. Should be a good one. Very good team, but they made an allusion to it. But I don't think Jack even wants to recognize the fact that it was the team put up a snowman on them. One of the most lopsided wins of the year, certainly for the Jets and really in the league. I mean, you don't get that many 8-1s. So But first things first, we'll focus in on the Habs. It's always a fun night when the Jets get into Montreal. Hopefully I'll be able to catch that game when we arrive in Costa Rica for tomorrow night. And hopefully I'll have a chance to jump on a little later on, give you an update on the good stuff we've been going down with the Cool Bet guys and have some fun. And hopefully some glory poker stories coming out of this big tournament that we're going to be playing in.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I want to tell the listeners what you're doing in Costa Rica, a big poker tournament, right?
Yeah, this is a big kind of international poker tourney that myself and Paul Shag from our buddy Pat Mayo's crew and the Dogger Pass podcast, the two of us are heading down there, and we're both getting a chance to play in the main event. I think tomorrow we'll find out what day we start in, and then I guess the idea is to survive your first day, and then you make it to later on in the week to like kind of the final day when all of the days come together. And then the final table, I believe, is a week today. So if I somehow miraculously get to the final table, I'll be needing to change my flight an extra day. But that would be, we're both saying we'd be more than happy to do that if need be. But I'll find out if there's any sort of coverage on it or how people can follow on and make sure to let you guys know. And we're going to be doing some fun content down here as well. So we'll fire it over to you and get you a few picks. Let us know how we're doing and hopefully have some good stories about getting some good cards and rivering a bunch of guys and driving them crazy.
Yeah, well, you did have from, Qatar, you did a video of you in the pool there. You did the lazy river in Vegas after the draft. I'm assuming they do have a pool where you're staying. I know the listeners want to see another video of you in the pool. Actually, I was going to ask, are any like big poker pros there? Like Phil Ivey, Phil Hellmuth?
You know what? Ask me tomorrow. As I say, I'm in the Toronto airport, just walking to our gate. We're about to get loaded on here. So I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, it's a pretty big, I think it may be more some people from like Central America or South America. I believe it's called the Malta Poker Open, if I'm not mistaken. So you can look that up if you want. But I'll have some more details when we get there tomorrow and make sure to give you all the 411. And I'll be throwing some stuff up on my Twitter, my Instagram at Hustlerama. You all know where to find me.
All right. Looking forward to hearing more about Hustler on the road. I know you got some more exciting road trips next month as well. So I'm glad this worked out. I paid my Skype credits, and we
Great
have
work
you.
on the Skype, Remis. Great work.
It's got to be honest, it's hard. I had my name as Mike McIntyre for the last segment on there. I didn't even notice. So, hey, doing a lot of things here. I was able to call you live while competing with the show. We still have over 300 in here watching, so I appreciate everyone who's tuned in. Thank you for joining.
No problem, Remo. Thanks again for holding it down, and we'll look forward to catching up later on this week. Have a great rest of the program.
Yeah, sure. Hey, just quickly, Adam Douglas wants your reaction to the Rantanen trade. Did you leave?
Oh, I mean, amazing. Amazing. I went through it, actually, had a good chat with Connor and Liz yesterday on WST Sunday Live, if people want to check that out. I mean, just a wild trade. I'm very shocked that it happened, especially hearing now what we're hearing from Rantanen and sort of his camp, that he claims that he was willing to take a team discount and then they just traded him. Obviously, we're hearing from some that he wasn't willing to go under 14 mil, and I don't know whether we'll ever really find out the truth, but a wild swing for the Carolina Hurricanes, who get a player in Rantanen that can be an absolute difference maker. And it's the team that's, won a couple rounds a number of times and then gotten swept 3 straight times to the conference finals. So they needed to figure something out. And I think they will have a chance to potentially re-sign him, considering he's going to be rolling with his buddy Sebastian Aho, who we'll see playing at the Four Nations. So, and from Colorado, I mean, listen, as a Jets guy, not at all upset with seeing Mikko Rantanen out of the division this year. Nick Ash is a great player, talented, great future, does have one more year in his deal, so they can sort of kick that down the road a little bit for Colorado. But I certainly think it makes them less likely to win this year. So for those other teams like the Jets in the Central Division, I don't think anyone's too upset about it. But from just a standpoint of fans and media covering the game, incredible deal. I mean, the biggest that we've seen in season probably in 20 plus years.
Yeah, I think people are going online. I forget who. I think Frank tweeted. He said Joe Thornton would be the biggest in season involving a player of that caliber. And I think I would agree.
That's literally 20 years ago.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well,
two players both in the top 10 in scoring.
Yeah, I mean, they just no slouch. That's why I don't mind it for Colorado, provided we see what they do with these draft picks and if they make more trades. Huss, have a safe trip down to San Jose, Costa Rica, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you throughout the week.
You got it. Thanks to everyone in the chat and you podcast listeners. We'll catch up later on this week. Have a good one.
There he is. Yeah, thank you. There he is. Huss on his way from the airport. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, check him out on Hustler Emma on social media as ours as well. Sports Talk WPG. Trying to bring in, see what it's like there at the Poker Open. Hey, time for the Cool Bet line. Actually, no, I think I got to do a little fans feedback brought to you by Fans First. I haven't done that one yet. Fans feedback brought to you by Fans First, your best option for buying and selling tickets in Winnipeg with no fees. What you see is what you pay. Certainly the best place if you have an extra pair of seats to get rid of them. I can tell you as someone who's used Fans First on the odd occasion where I have to move a pair of tickets, utilizing it so user-friendly. The customer service is great, and you're getting paid the next day right after a game. I know they've been busy, this past month with all the Jets home games. No doubt about that. How's everyone feeling out there about the Jets weekend? I mean, what's your takeaway from the Jets, weekend wins over Calgary and Utah? If you want to weigh in on the Super Bowl, if you want to weigh in on the Rantanen trade or the Bombers cutting Adam Bighill, or sorry, not cutting. They won't be coming out and saying, hey, we're not going to offer Adam Bighill a contract and releasing Drew Wolitarsky. So a lot of topics. Everyone is chiming in on everything. So people did enjoy Hustler's call and him joining the program. Maybe not as happy that the Chiefs are in as Hustler was. So there we go. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling tickets by fans for fans with no fees. Anyways, cool bet lines. What is the line on the Super Bowl? I haven't even looked at it. It's going to be tight. Here it is. The Chiefs favored by 1.5 points, minus 125 on the money line, plus 106 for the Eagles on the money line. The over-under set at 49.5. We'll see how that number moves as we approach the Super Bowl 2 weeks away. NHL, number of games tonight on a Monday. Kings, Red Wings plus 125 underdogs at home. The Flyers plus 125 underdogs against the Devils. And I did see John Tortorella canceled the morning skate there because he said half the guys are throwing up. The bug going through there. We have the Amazon Prime game with the Blues minus 135 favorites at home against the Canucks. And the Oilers, massive favorites, minus 294 against the Kraken. The San Jose Sharks, underdogs against the Penguins, plus 143. They got any good combo cards? You could have Dusty, Super Boost, Boston Common at the Jupiter Lynx and the Moneyline Lakers. All right, we have some esports action there, and not much else on the combo cards there. Any exclusives? Edmonton Sports Talk, they've got a parlay. McDavid, 2+ points. Draisaitl, a goal. And Edmonton to win, plus 260. Not paying a ton. They are massive favorites against Seattle. And they do cool bet a number of exclusives. McDavid, a goal and an assist. And the Oilers to win, plus 285. How about shots? Hyman, Kyrou, and Tippett, all 3+ shots on goal. Lamplighters, Draisaitl, and Crosby, both to score, plus 485. Points from the point, Evan Bouchard, Quinn Hughes, and Dougie Hamilton, all to record 1+ points plus 400. And there it is. What a show. We got through it on a Monday. Shout out to Connor Hrabchak. Shout out to Hustler, Mike McIntyre, Jeff Hamilton, and Evan Rawal on the road covering the Avalanche. Hey, and thank you to all you, the listeners who came in, who chatted, who downloaded on the podcast, who left the thumbs up, who subscribed to our channel, followed us on Apple and Spotify. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching the show. It was fun talking about the Jets weekend, and look forward to tomorrow's road game against Montreal. I got to get out. We got to put this podcast up. A lot of people counting on this to be on their phone like ASAP. So thanks again, everyone. Shout out to all you who listen, and thanks to all of our guests and our great sponsors as well. Rolly's Transfer, Manitoba Battery, Princess Auto, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Fans First, Little Round Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and the Winnipeg Jets. And yes, T-Will. I said thank you to the Super Chats as well, T-Will and T. Kona Polly. Hey, I think Hacksaw, he's usually doing a show. If you want more NHL discussion, I will send everyone over to him. Oh, I don't believe he is actually live. There is no, let me just refresh quickly. We'll see if Hacksaw is on. If not, we will get Hacksaw's thoughts later on, what is that day? Thursday. No, Friday. Hacksaw joins Friday. Anyways, I appreciate everyone who has tuned in. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.